By the way, let me tell you a little bit about Babylon. The Assyrians, when they would conquer a land, and I'm going to use the United States as an example. I don't know what you all know about the United States, but uh, Alabama and Mississippi are kind of mirror images. If you drew an outline of Mississippi and flipped it over, you basically would have Alabama. They're almost identical in their shape, almost identical. Okay, so if somebody conquered Mississippi, like Assyria would do it, Assyria would take everybody from Mississippi and they move them over to Alabama because the land is very similar. There's a black belt of it's a black belt of soil uh, that goes across both those states, and it's very very good for planting. So you take the people from the black belt of Mississippi and you put them over here in the black belt of Alabama. If you were conquering Mississippi and you were Assyrian, that's the way you would do it. And then they'd take when they conquered Alabama, they'd move those folks over to Mississippi. That's the way they did it. Okay, so Israel is taken out of their own land, and they're put somewhere else that's like Israel. And the other people who are used to living in an area like Israel are moved into the land of Israel. Now you may remember what happens. They end up getting eaten by lions, some of them, and they start complaining to the king, and he says, "We've got to get a priest in here who knows about the God that lives here." And they instruct them, and thus you end up with the Samaritan people, a kind of a intermingling breed of people who know about the God of Israel because they had to be taught or they'd have died. No, but Babylon doesn't work that way. Uh, Nebuchadnezzar would go in and he would extract all the brilliant leaders of the land, and he'd take them into captivity. Now the theory was, if you get rid of all the leaders, then the people will be passive. That was the theory. The problem is the Jews were never passive. They just are not a passive people. They refuse to be conquered thoroughly. And so what would end up happening is then they rebel again. And Nebuchadnezzar now rips off the next layer. You know, he takes off the next line of leaders, if you would, and they rebel again. And so finally, Nebuchadnezzar comes in there and just crushes them. He just said, "That's it. I'm tired of that." Just crushes them. Total defeat. That's the way that works. So we're seeing the beginning of that in chapter 1. We're seeing him pull these leaders off. He knows who they are. And he's going to okay. So Mario, you've asked a good question, and hopefully I've given a reasonable answer to
You have,
that.
brother. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, verse 5. And the king appointed for them a daily provision of the king's delicacies, of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so that at the end of that time they might serve before the king. All right, they would be given provision from the king's delicacies and wine, along with 3 years of training. Now, Young says they were to be of the royal seed. So he picks up on verse 6. Now, from among those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. All right, whoever it was last time that said, "I don't know their three names, their Hebrew names," these are the Hebrew names. Okay, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And we're going to see their names change, of course. In this way, he's going to strengthen his cabinet with the best and the brightest. Now, they're put under the charge of the chief of the eunuchs. We're going to see that in the next verse. That's why I think they were made eunuchs. You know, why would you put men under the chief of the eunuchs and not make the guy a eunuch? Well, I don't have a good answer. And you might say, why did they make them eunuchs? Well, I'm going to give you the simplest explanation. A eunuch is unlikely to have an affair with the queen. because he can't have an affair. I mean, not completely, if you follow me. And I'm not going to get any more detailed than that. I think you can figure it out. Okay, so that's a part of why. The other thing is a eunuch is harder to tempt to uh, to betray his country because again, you've taken away the female temptation. You've ripped that away, and so it is for the sake of the country that you do that. You know, that's where it comes from. But any questions so far on these opening verses or comments? Yes, Obed.
I don't know if this is I don't know if I wasn't following, but I just want a clarification. Does that mean these Jewish boys were made eunuchs?
Probably, probably. I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
see. Watch my word. I didn't say absolutely because I can't prove it. But they're put under the control. And that's the next verse. To them, the chief of the eunuchs gave names. See, who's their boss man ultimately? The chief of the eunuchs. So my suspicion is that they are made eunuchs. Now, can I prove that they were? Not. I can't prove it. That's just my suspicion.
Now, brother,
Yeah,
um, you suspect, and I'm on board with that flag going up, that they were made eunuchs when they were under the authority of this um, chief of the eunuchs. But isn't it true that the kings of Israel uh, had eunuchs as well?
they did. I'm not sure whether they made them that way, but they did
Mhm.
have them. Some, yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yeah. All right, verse 7. We want to carry on a bit. Well, let me first. These potential leaders. When you take these leaders, I already mentioned that. These are potential leaders of Jewish resistance. If they'd have stayed home, they might have led the rebellion. Okay, so they're so what are we going to do? We're going to try to totally take them out of rebellious approach. So what are we going to do? We're going to change their names. All references to their God are going to disappear. And in place of that, we're going to give them the names of the Babylonian gods. So watch verse 7. To them, the chief of the eunuchs gave names. He gave Daniel the name Belteshazzar, to Hananiah, uh, Shadrach, to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. Now, the little girl in Bible class said it's Shadrach, Meshach, and to bed we go, and that's not really quite right, but nonetheless, those are the names that are given. All right, Daniel. Daniel's name means God is my judge, and I'm talking about the God of heaven is my judge. Belteshazzar is Bel, remember that's their God, protect his life. Hananiah, his name means God is gracious. Shadrach means commanded of Aku, and Aku is another Babylonian god. And then Azariah, his name means the Lord helps. And Abednego means a servant of Nebo, another god of the land of Babylon. So so they're trying to rip them out of their Israelite thinking, and they're trying to make them Babylonianish, and they're doing that by these names. Yes, Chip.
And they're trying to just absolutely brainwash them. And I mean, wow, this is a pretty extreme measure. This is like, war tactics.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is the the to say that Nebuchadnezzar was dumb, and you didn't say that, but to say he was dumb would be a mistake. He knew exactly what he was doing. It's pretty powerful, really. He's taking young men. We do not know their age, But here's what I do know about, like Daniel. I know he lived 70 years in the land of Babylon. And then he lived 3 more years under the Persian rule. Now, he may not have died at that point. We don't know. So my suspicion is Daniel is maybe a teenager when he goes in to Babylon. And I said maybe, I don't know, but maybe he is. And he's having everything taken away from him that has anything to do with home. That is evident, from the very outset. All right, so verse 8, Daniel makes an interesting request. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the chief of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Daniel, for some reason, thought that eating from the king's table would defile him. Now, why? Well, I'm not sure I have an answer to that. There's no biblical absolute answer. But let me give you some possibilities. It may have been based on God's law on clean and unclean animals. Look at the book of Leviticus, just briefly. Leviticus chapter 11. In Leviticus chapter 11, verses 46 and 47, where we find, this is the law of the animals and of the birds and of every living creature that moves in the waters and of every creature that creeps on the earth, to distinguish between the unclean and the clean, and between the animal that may be eaten and the animal that may not be eaten. Maybe King Nebuchadnezzar loved barbecued pork. I don't know. I can't tell you that. But if he liked barbecued pork, that would be a problem for Daniel, wouldn't it? Because Daniel's going to keep honoring his God.